The placebo effect is something most people have heard of, and yet many know very little about. When I was trained as a medical doctor, we were advised that it was unethical to give placebos. Apparently, if you were going to treat someone, it should be done with pharmaceuticals and interventions that cause obvious physical effects. The opposite of the placebo effect is the nocebo effect, of which even less is known. As a doctor in the system, both were typically considered to be annoying factors that got in the way of assessing treatment results. Attempts were even made to quantify their effects, particularly in clinical trials research, in which I was a supervising physician. I subsequently realised that there was something wrong with the way the paradigm was being framed and its relationship to human nature. In this video, I will outline the history of both placebo and nocebo and some narratives that have been built up around the concepts. Most importantly, I'll show you that there is no need to complicate this issue because true health and prosperity are in your hands through right living and right thinking. Based on findings in the published literature, it is entirely feasible that nocebo could cause cold and flu symptoms. Its ability to spread is tied to the belief in contagious germs. This mind virus infects through lifelong conditioning, lies dormant, and then emerges only at critical moments, where it feeds on basic human motives like familiarity, trust in authority, and fear. During personal and collective crises, the contagion story grows in strength. Yet people never consider the potential for nocebo, let alone the capacity for the prevailing germ narrative to produce nocebo. Daniel Reuters, can you catch a cold? The word placebo is said to have originated in the English language in the early 13th century. In Psalm 116:9, the Latin placebo domino in regione viverum translates to I will please the Lord in the land of the living. So the word placebo essentially meant to please. For those of us in the Judeo-Christian tradition, it indicates the way to orientate our lives on earth according to His way. The use of the noun placebo in a medical sense was first recorded in 1785 and took a more derogatory meaning of a medicine given more to please than to benefit the patient. The term placebo effect then came into use from 1900 onwards. The definition has certainly been twisted over time and can have very negative connotations in the present era.
It is not a compromise. It may be a compromise with the devil, but it's not a compromise with the Democrats.
Wikipedia states that the definition of placebo has been debated. One definition states that a treatment process is a placebo when none of the characteristic treatment factors are effective, remedial, or harmful in the patient for a given disease. This is certainly a departure from the original meaning, but that is nothing new in this domain. As we have covered in our publications such as The Truth About Contagion, the definitions of all sorts of words have been perverted in the name of medical science, including infection, contagion, pathogenic, and even theory. Wikipedia's claim that it is a placebo when, quote, none of the characteristic treatment factors are effective, remedial, or harmful, is certainly not what we always witness. As researchers such as Professor Chris Exley have pointed out for a long time, aluminium is known to be harmful, and yet it is used as a purported placebo in clinical trials involving vaccines. That way both the experimental group receiving the vaccine and the, quote, placebo group both get injected with toxic aluminium, so adverse events can be declared statistically unrelated to the vaccine. As Dr. Exley states, this deception is the original dirty trick used by vaccine manufacturers to mask the toxicity of aluminium adjuvants in vaccines. Indeed, Wikipedia's claim that placebos are used in randomized clinical trials to test the efficacy of medical treatments might be right in theory, but the drug companies simply use it as window dressing. Staying on Wikipedia, we note the interesting commentary that the use of placebos in clinical medicine raises ethical concerns, especially if they are disguised as an active treatment, as this introduces dishonesty into the doctor-patient relationship and bypasses informed consent. Well, bypassing informed consent was a specialty of many medical systems during the COVID-19 era, specifically when the, quote, treatments were administered en masse. Any concerns about placebos are rather insignificant when compared to the ethical maxim of first do no harm. I would not be surprised if millions of people now wish they had been, quote, tricked and given a placebo rather than a COVID vaccine. The final part that I will mention on Wikipedia's placebo entry is they can affect how patients perceive their condition and encourage the body's chemical processes for relieving pain and a few other symptoms, but have no impact on the disease itself. You are forgiven if you are now unclear on what placebo means and whether it is a good or bad thing, ethical or unethical, a useful therapeutic or an annoying distraction. You also have to wonder whether this situation is a result of the pharmaceutical industry and its habit of creating narratives that suit its purposes. After all, Big Pharma don't deal in sugar pills. They deal in powerful petrochemical products that you won't find in nature. Perhaps they like to make it clear that their concoctions will definitely have some effects on your body, no matter what your state of mind. We now move to nocebo, which is considered to be the opposite of placebo. That is, a harmless substance or treatment that when taken by or administered to a patient is associated with harmful side effects or worsening of symptoms due to negative expectations. The word noxious appeared in the English language around the year 1500 and derived from the Latin nocere, which meant to hurt. In many ways, the concept of nocebo is even more important than placebo due to the serious compromises that can happen in an individual's health. The term was first introduced in a medical sense by Walter Kennedy in 1961 when he said of the placebo, "It is somewhat surprising that little attention has been drawn to the existence of the contrary effect, which I may call the nocebo reaction." It was recognized that, like the placebo effect, the nocebo effect was going to impact not only clinical trials and research, but also everyday consultations and advice. Currently, I am in the final stages of narrating the audiobook version of Can You Catch a Cold by Daniel Reuters. Keep an eye out for that soon, as we plan to get Dan back for another interview to discuss the launch and some updates. For those that have read the book already, I'm sure you will appreciate it is a unique and pivotal publication in refuting the virus model, germ theory, and the wider microbial contagion paradigm. During his research, Dan became conscious of the importance of both the placebo and nocebo effects and their impact on health outcomes. He also noted just how powerful a nocebo could be in the following example he described. In 1983, a group of British researchers divided over 400 cancer patients into 3 groups during a placebo-controlled chemotherapy trial. 2 groups received different forms of chemotherapy, while the third received a saline placebo. Of the 130 patients receiving the saltwater treatment, 40 or 31% developed alopecia, hair loss. 45 or 35% experienced drug-related nausea, and 28 or 22% developed drug-related vomiting. These are all typical side effects of chemotherapy, not symptoms of cancer. As such, these results are a testament to the power of nocebo. Simply believing they had received chemotherapy and understanding what this treatment typically entailed was enough to induce dramatic side effects. Dan goes on to outline the importance that belief systems, such as those involving perceived dangerous germs, can have, particularly with regard to the nocebo effect. There are numerous examples of human contagion experiments where the subjects manifested the symptoms that they expected to experience, regardless of which substances they were exposed to. The evidence was similar concerning the belief that simply being in proximity to a sick person could result in catching something from them. Dan's research led him to the conclusion that, though lifestyle may seem like a separate point from placebo and nocebo, the two are intimately related. He went on to say that a critical point to highlight in all of this is that placebo and nocebo aren't psychological ghosts in the machine, completely divorced from how the mind normally works. Expectation and suggestion are ordinary mental processes that all humans engage in and respond to. Furthermore, the mind and the body are not separate. They are parts of an integrated whole. What happens to one will inevitably affect the other. Here, Daniel Reuters has revealed the essence of someone else who has been instrumental in our appreciation of health, and that is Dr. Ulrich Williams. Dr. Williams lived from 1890 to 1971 and was a physician in my home country of New Zealand. Like my husband Mark and I, he was trained in allopathic medicine, but halfway through his career realised the errors of the approach. He ceased prescribing pharmaceuticals and performing surgeries, and instead taught people how to be truly well through dietary and lifestyle measures. I outlined his life in my video, New Zealand's Greatest Doctor, and we have republished some of his most important writing in the book Terrain Therapy. Ulrich Williams would state the following: "Don't fight disease, but practice good health. Claim it, think it, feel it, believe in it, and dare to manifest it. That is what brings it about. Resist not evil, but overcome evil with good. If you wish to become good, be good. If you wish to become well, begin immediately to be well." Fear and disease consciousness, and that barbaric embodiment of them both, maternal solicitude, are among the greatest of all causes of disease. And if disease is to go from our bodies, we must let it go from our minds, not merely once in our life, but day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment. We are compelled to make a choice. Which shall it be? The destructive, degenerative, negative, disease-producing, wrong thoughts, the natural animal-man characteristics, or the constructive, regenerative, positive, health-maintaining, right thoughts, the spiritual higher self attributes? The two choices lead in opposite directions. The former, downwards, through sickness, unhappiness, poverty, to disease, misery, disaster, destruction, despair. The latter leads upwards to light and life, to health and happiness, and general well-being of body, mind, soul, and estate, for ourselves, for those we love, and all we come in contact with, in fact, for the world at large. While the word Nocebo had not yet been introduced when Ulrich Williams wrote the preceding, you will note that he did not use the word placebo either. His words are clear and provide wisdom about our nature and the way to orientate ourselves towards health and prosperity. This is not through a reductionist approach that ends up compartmentalizing health or considering natural processes as some sort of inconvenience that needs accounting for. I am not saying that the words placebo and nocebo are redundant or should be dismissed from our lexicon. I am saying that there is little utility in trying to separate them out in order to objectively quantify them in some way. They are part of what it means to be human, woven intricately into our being. These are themes that are evident in the scripture, hence Ulrich Williams citing Romans 12:21, "Resist not evil, but overcome evil with good." Negative thoughts such as fear and resentment ultimately turn against those that think them. To be clear, this is not abstract theology. It is practical instruction for how to live and prosper. There can be no doubt that the COVID-19 fraud amplified negative thinking and worsened the health status of millions of people. They were bombarded with fear propaganda centered around a phantom virus. Many, believing the concocted story as they wore masks, became scared of others, stayed indoors and worried that they could be attacked or killed by the imagined entity. If they did get sick with cold and flu symptoms, they would declare that they had never had anything like it before and that they hoped not to be stuck with long COVID, another fictional entity placed into their minds. Those of us that could see the fraud did not get sick and maintained the health of our families by ignoring government advice and avoiding the various COVID rituals. Obviously, that was not the case for everyone, as some who saw the fraud became stressed with the impact of mandates on employment and travel, as well as family and social tensions. We are certainly aware of individuals who found it difficult to deal with the magnitude of the deceit and the frustration in trying to get others to see what was behind the show. Some of them had significant health compromise as a consequence of the stress, rather than being scared of an invented threat or being physically injured by the shots. However, deception is not peculiar to our time and has been at work since the original sin. What is novel about the form that currently operates is the digital world's technological elements and the relentless messaging. Many of the fear narratives involve germs and promote a sense of helplessness for the individual as they passively await instruction from governments and the pharmaceutical industry.
We drum in that messaging around the dangers of COVID pretty diligently for a full 2-week period of sustained propaganda.
And of course, the digital stage has become so big that the show is simultaneously broadcast to all parts of the earth. If people simply turned off the news and went outside, they might notice that the stories don't add up. We can certainly not underestimate how much the medico-pharmaceutical system has been weaponized against the population. The COVID era brought this to all new levels, but the silver lining was the number of people who woke up to the harm of most allopathic medicine. Even so, there often lingers a residual feeling of dependence on the system with its perceived powerful drugs and high-tech interventions. You will see the reflexive parroting of medical slogans such as, "We need more funding for drugs or hospital beds or surgical procedures." However, outside of some emergency care, it is erroneous thinking and leads to neglect of the practices that determine true health. Your health will mostly be determined by the way you think and how you live your daily life. There are no two ways about it, so be wary about outsourcing something so precious. The recipe is simple and does not involve attempted calculations of placebo or nocebo effects. Leave this to the pharmaceutical industry and technocrats who consider the body to be an experimental vehicle or economic unit. In order to truly prosper, the idea is, and has always been, to please. If you want further information about what this involves, then please check out all the free resources at drsambailey.com, as well as the book Terrain Therapy. I will hand over to Dr. Ulrich Williams for some final thoughts on this theme. Almost all drugs are poisonous. Many are venomous. Few are even temporarily admissible. None would be required if natural requirements were complied with. Were we not taught not to think, the stupidity of swallowing or injecting noxious substances with a view to ridding ourselves of the consequence of wrong thinking and living would hardly need emphasis. If you enjoyed this video, please visit supportdrsam.com